But something tells me that Manuel Mosley was supposed to be our number one corner, covering the better, wide receivers, and that Cam Sutton was supposed to be the number two, which in my opinion, I felt that Cam has always kind of been a number two, and that's kind of where he belonged. He did not do well against some of the bigger wide receivers, and it clearly showed last year he was a liability. So when Emmanuel Mosley obviously comes back and gets injured, so that left Cam in charge there as the number one, and then, you've got the rest of the DB room just really didn't play well at all. I mean, they were god-awful, to be honest with you. How do you feel Vildor now in this season, which I think you've already said he's been playing well, he's going to be a product now of a DB room that is surrounded by amazing athletes. Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw have already proven early on, albeit preseason, that they can hang and that they've got some skill behind them. They're going to have ups and downs this year. They're going to get tested. There's going to be times that they blow coverage. It's just going to happen. But what I saw to Rakestraw right away in that New York Giants game was that first outlet pass or whatever up to the flats. He latched down and drove that guy out of bounds, and that is something that we haven't seen in our DB room in a long time, where guys are engaging and using their strength and not just trying to make a high-level play or get the ball or tip the ball. They're actually engaging, being a hitter, and that's something that's been far gone from the Lions DB room. We haven't had good hitters or tacklers in that room. But Vildor, I believe, is a much better corner. I don't think that he's going to get cut. I think that he's going to make this roster. I do feel like the Lions are probably going to keep one extra cornerback than they did last year, or at least keep 6, and probably 4, maybe 5 safeties potentially with this new kickoff rule. But do you feel that Vildor is going to have a better season if he does stick with the Lions because of the product of, or being a product of the room? And I feel like the room has a big emphasis or a statement on how other players play.
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, the expectation level is higher because when Terrion Arnold has always been a great player. Ennis Rakestraw Jr., even though I think he was a 3-star recruit, but I could be wrong, has always been a great player. Carlton Davis III has won the Super Bowl. He played with Tom Brady. He's always been maybe not a great player to some people's minds, but he's always been a really good corner. Suffered some injuries, but the film that I had of him last year, I liked it for the most part. I think that the room does it make people better? Yeah, he's going to have to fight a guy like Kindle Vildor. He's going to have to fight just to get on the field, on the defense, which it'll be rare. Special teams is probably the avenue that he's got to make himself available for. I think it's possible they keep an extra corner because whoever they don't keep does get picked up by another team. I think to your point is that they've built depth at that corner position, more quality depth than they have at other positions like defensive line. Even though we like some of those guys, they don't meet the standard to the 4th or 5th or 6th best DB on this team. I mean, Emmanuel Mosley, where does he fit if everyone is healthy right now with this defense? You're looking at Emmanuel Mosley, Amik Robertson, those guys competing with each other to try to get on the field. I think that's you're blessed to have a group like that, if you ask me.
So to follow up on that, what do you believe the DBs can provide the defensive line? Do you believe that Marcus Davenport, Aiden Hutchinson, and the rest of the defensive line will benefit from having a better defensive back room? I guess why or why not? And really a follow-up, I guess, to a follow-up is, I guess, explain in your words or your opinion how having a reliable DB room can really transform a defensive line. Why or why not? You may or may not believe that. And I guess what nuances to the game can really change at each level when this happens? If you follow the question,
yeah,
that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the coverage and the blitz elements are related. They help each other, or they hurt each other, right? One can hurt the other. Let's do it this way. You have no pass rush. You don't have 4 guys who can win. You have 0. Well, then now you've got to sacrifice coverage, component players, people, to try to create pass rush, and so you're possibly putting yourself at risk. That's what they had to do last year. I think you've got the opposite this year. You've got more talented guys in coverage who can execute a higher degree of coverages. And, for my explanation or my answer, we're going to go from back to front. I think when you have more talented guys in the defensive secondary, you can play a wider umbrella of coverages. And I'm going to have to reference the Ravens for some of this. So, forgive me for that. But what it does, in my opinion, is it forces
just keep turning the knife, Coach. I get it. I'm just kidding. You've got great tape on these guys, watching that game because they completely killed us.
Well, switching coverages post snap, it gives the quarterback multiple looks, and I can reference a player that the Ravens totally flipped the script on in 2022 and 2023. And it's not to say that he doesn't play well against the Ravens or he's not any good. I think he's a elite quarterback. But this Joe Burrow, prior to 2022, he had shredded the Ravens because we pretty much lined up in what we were going to play post snap. He knew the look. He knew where to go with the ball. He just had to execute it. Starting in 2022, Mike McDonald shows up. We are able to adjust things post snap such that he's, 0.3 seconds longer getting his read. That's the difference that we're talking about here, that, less than a half a second or maybe a half a second. And in that time, the pass rush is getting there. So you have a guy who, quote, maybe gets a win by PFF or rating services, but doesn't get to the quarterback. Well, with better coverage on the back end, that win translates into actually getting to the quarterback in a QB pressure or a sack. I'm not sure that I explained it completely, but for me, my explanation will be back to front. Because you have better players, the actual coverage will be better. They'll be closer to the receivers. All right, that's simple to understand. But also you have a wider umbrella of possibilities to play in terms of coverages, such that the quarterback has to first decipher what the hell the coverage is post-snap before trying to find out who's open or who will be open if it's a zone defense in a particular window. And in that time, that 0.3 seconds or maybe 0.5, the defensive pass rush can get there, whether it's a 4-man rush or a 5-man rush. That would be my answer. I didn't really reference your players on the Lions, but I think it can help. The DBs can obviously help the D-line and vice versa. The threat of the blitz at times. So many teams in the NFL are now, they're showing the mug blitz with 6 guys on the line, and then they're going to drop 2 of them out, but they're trying to show the quarterback different looks pre-snap than they show him post-snap, excuse me. And I think you got more options to do that now. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Aaron Glenn does with it and how he takes advantage of the talent upgrades across the board.
I think that there's definitely one constant here, and that is Aaron Glenn has not been able to do what he is ingrained to do. And the defense of the style of defense that he would prefer to play is man-to-man. And it seemed like last year we were playing man-to-man with zone cover corners. We just didn't have the right personnel. And I know that there was a lot of chatter about firing Aaron Glenn. And, this is a no excuse season for Aaron Glenn. It kind of is, because now he's been given the players that he needs, that he's wanted, that fit his defensive style, And for that reason, I think now you're going to see kind of what you're talking about here is the coverage alignments and the schemes that now can be disguised within the fronts that we can utilize. You might be in a 4-3 base, but you can disguise a whole heck of a lot out of that. You could be in a nickel and you can still disguise a ton out of it. We could bring 6 DBs in and get extremely fast up front and blitz 2 of the corners. There are so many opportunities now with these guys. And I think that the disguise option now is elevated. We have a lot more opportunity to stay hidden in our fronts, which is going to give these quarterbacks a ton of fits. But now having man-to-man corners, Ennis Rakestraw, Terrion Arnold, Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson, all 4 of those guys excel in man coverage. And I would say that they can also play, in coverage, assignments as well, off man, not so much press man all the time. And they can still do well. But I think that that's going to give this defensive line, to your point, more time. And I tried to make the analogy, like most quarterbacks try to get the ball out in under 3 seconds, right? Most defensive ends or pass rushers are not getting to the quarterback in 3 seconds. So unless you have a DB or 2 that can make that quarterback hang on to the ball, another quarter second, half a second longer, you're not going to get a bunch of sacks. And people like to call this coverage sacks. But to me, I think it's just good defense. If you're doing your job on the back end, you're going to allow the guys up front to do their job. And I think for once, we're going to see that balance or that symmetry from front to back or from back to front, like you just alluded to. And any comments on that statement there?